My Week is on Mackinac Island for the Detroit Regional Chamber's Mackinac Policy Conference. We'll talk the state of K-12 education, plus 6 candidates for governor from both parties on one stage, and a one-on-one with PBS CEO Paula Kerger. Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson are here. I'm Christy McDonald. My Week from Mackinac is coming up.
Support for My Week at the Mackinac Policy Conference is brought to you by Masco Corporation Foundation, DTE Energy Foundation, ITC Holdings Corporation, Delta, and by...
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Hi there, and welcome to My Week from Mackinac Island, the Mackinac Policy Conference in the Grand Hotel. I'm Christy McDonald. It's day 2 of the conference, and a lot of the conversation is centering around education, not only in the city of Detroit, but K-12 statewide. And people are talking about what needs to be done in terms of funding and policy to help our kids achieve. When you talk about reform, there's so many different pieces to it. Is there also part of it that you need to step back and see what is our next bit of leadership in Michigan going to be? Who's going to be in the governor's office? What's going to be happening in the legislature? Do you have to wait for those pieces of the puzzle as well?
No, we can't wait. We've been waiting too long, and we have to take that action. And I would take this answer to your question in 2 ways. I think we got to get started early childhood, 3rd grade. You get there, it's supply chain at its best, and then you take a look at that supply chain through K-12, through community colleges, through careers, through trades, and through universities. So get started now and get that early childhood K-12 all figured out now. We can't wait on that. Now the rest of the framework can be used by leaders who are going to be in the governor's office and those that are coming to the Senate and the House. One of the things that I've noted time and again is that education's a public good. Education, if you look at it as a public good, started in the Northwest Ordinances in 1787. It was in the 63 Constitution. And for the last 30 years, we've gone away from that. So it really now becomes a focus, I think, of good leadership to understand that the public good, it is a public education that is going to drive our state forward.
Hey, Doug, have we stopped thinking about education in that way? That do we need to go back and saying it is public good, but not only is it public good, it is also an economic driver. It makes smart economic sense to make sure that we have this system in place.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tom and I have worked on the idea of making sure that higher education is a higher priority in Michigan for, how many years now. And, it's unfortunate that this is one of the areas that we've disinvested in more than just about any other place. And so I don't know if people don't think it's a public good, but it's certainly not gotten the priority level that we think it should in terms of funding. But I want to go back to one other thing that maybe Tom said for a minute, Christy, which is I hope that the elected leaders that are running or people that are running for elected office right now really do look to reports that Tom put out, that Amber puts out, we've put out before they come up with their own plans. I mean, one thing we don't need right now is yet another set of ideas that we have to kind of redo. I think there's a lot of good work that's already been done and will be done. What we need is support to get those over the finish line.
And it's really making it a priority. Amber, we've talked a little bit in the past about looking at other states that are doing things that we can emulate. So do we feel that we finally have a framework from places like Massachusetts and some ideas from Tennessee that we can incorporate and that can actually work here in Michigan, seeing as those are 2 very different states from what we're dealing with here?
They are different states, and I think it's important for us to acknowledge that the way forward for Michigan won't look exactly like it has in, say, Massachusetts. That said, there are sort of like common strategies and investments that really all of the fastest improving and leading states have done. For example, really investing on improving teaching quality, building the capacity of local educators and school principals to raise learning levels. Those are the kinds of things that I think many, many people acknowledge and understand. As a parent, I'm sure you know, right, the quality of the teacher in front of your child every day in the school makes a huge difference in their life. And so I think there's a growing appreciation for educators in the field and what we need to do to better support them. And the question is, what does that look like? And I think we're going to figure that out in the next several months.
You know, that brings in a couple of issues to play. And Tom, let me ask you, as a university president, how many people are you seeing going in the teaching profession and looking at educating our teachers? Is this a growing field, or are we a little stagnant right now in Michigan?
Yeah, one of the focus that we had with the commission report was looking at the teacher profession. Developing new teachers in the right way to really meet the challenges of the students that are coming through our system now and to the future. Retooling those teachers that we already have, making sure that the teaching profession is celebrated, not denigrated. And over these past years, I've seen that dynamic where the teaching profession is not held up high. And we're seeing at Grand Valley, for instance, in the last 10 years, we've seen a reduction of almost 50% of teachers wanting not to come into the profession. And it's really unfortunate because we're about to hit a very important point, because the number of retirees in the teaching profession is going to just really zoom up. We're going to really face a crisis just in the teaching profession, and having the right teachers with the credentials in front of our young people.
Doug, give me a wide view when you take a look at Michigan, and when other states look at Michigan and other businesses look at Michigan, and maybe we should relocate here. Take a look at Amazon, take a look at Foxconn, take a look at anybody else who might have been sizing up. How do we look to the rest of the country in terms of what our education system is here and the fits and starts that we've had in even trying to make the fixes that are necessary?
Well, the bottom line is not very good. I mean, our education attainment level overall in Michigan is below average. If you look at 4th and 8th grade reading and math scores, they're below average. If you look at the percentage of our kids that are deemed to be college or career ready in the 11th grade, we're below average. And you know, for companies these days, whether you're in manufacturing or high tech or just a headquarters even, you need highly educated and skilled talent.
All right, let's bring in our My Week contributors. Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, Stephen Henderson of WDET Radio. All right, day 2, guys, hanging out in the parlor. A lot of people focusing on education. There's a session going on right now as we speak about Detroit education. But I do want to start statewide, K through 12. I was hoping for some kind of big initiative announcement. I know something is going to be coming down in the next couple of weeks. But what kind of political will are you hearing galvanizing behind some serious K through 12 education reform, Nolan?
I don't think it's going to be in the next couple of weeks, really. I mean, we expected to come up here and hear the business action plan. They're not ready to do that yet. What they're trying to do is build a broad coalition that includes educators, unions, business, reform groups, and they're not anywhere near doing that. I don't know when they do it that it's going to be a comprehensive plan. I think they're going to slice off a few things where they think they can make an impact. We're a long way from a unified, comprehensive strategy in Michigan for education.
Yeah, but you know what? But if you start off with those few slivers and maybe at least start to get momentum, will you then get that buy-in to do the big things that you need to do?
Well, the answer historically has been no. I mean, we haven't done it. And I mean...
Yeah, I know, but how many more statistics does everybody need to see? How many more reports do we need to see?
Let's not pretend that those statistics and these reports are telling us something we haven't known for a long time. We have been sliding down that ladder for the last 10, maybe 20 years.
So I'm asking, what is the final bar? Like when you finally hit and say, okay, now we're in serious trouble. What is it going to take?
We talked about this before, too. It's parents, right? It's when I think the electeds are hearing from the people who put them in office that they absolutely have to have something better and that they're willing to maybe pay for something better, that I think you'll see them respond. You also have this 2 or 3-headed monster still that Nolan talks about a lot that manages education in the state, and it's really hard to mimic the things. If you look at Massachusetts or Florida or Tennessee, you look at the way a governor, for instance, in those states could say, here's what we're going to do, here's all the people I'm going to bring together to do it. I don't know that the governor here really has the power to do that, and this governor has not shown the will to do it.
You know, well, but he's also on his way out, and you're going to have a new governor coming in here in January.
But long before his way out, he commissioned the Education Commission and gave them the charge. They came up with an excellent plan. Now, some pieces of it are moving through the legislature. Some pieces of it are, but never was promoted or pushed in terms of one unified plan that you could ask the business community to support. It was in itself too narrow.
All right, well, let's look a little bit at Detroit education. So this afternoon you have Mayor Duggan, you have Dr. Vitti on a panel. I want to ask you both, what are the perceptions of DPSCD right now? Has it changed in the year that Vitti has come on board? Nolan, I'm going to start with you.
I think there's a sense that he's stabilizing the district. I talked to the mayor yesterday about that, Mayor Duggan. He says he no longer feels like he has to act. He has to be the one who intervenes. But I also talked to Vitti, who said this is a long-term project. Just getting the district back where it needs to be structurally, he was looking at a 5-year window, and just getting it to the point where it's an excellent school district, 10 years if he's lucky. Children don't have 10 years.
No, but I think it's interesting that he said he had to put so many processes in place and set up so many things that finally they're going to be able to start to implement some of the reforms they've been working on, or kind of saying on the horizon, this is what we're going to do in year 2 now.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things we've been really bad at in Detroit with education is consistency, right? We want to say, well, as soon as something debuts or as soon as somebody comes, we want to say, well, that person failed and it's been 8 months or it's been a year or a year and a half. We've also been really bad at patience, right? Understanding that we broke this system over 4 or 5 decades. A lot of people would say that's only happened in the last 10 or 20 years. That is an absolute falsehood. I grew up in this city at a time when my parents would not send me to Detroit Public School. So what's that, 40 some years. We have got to figure out that it will start with very small steps. It will start with consistency, it will start with stability, and it will grow to excellence and these other things. Vitti, when I talked to him this week, made an analogy to the NBA Finals. He said, you know, if you're down 30 points, you don't go out and make that 30 points up in 5 minutes. It's, you know, chipping away at the lead over time. He said that's exactly the situation that you have in Detroit schools, and you got to approach it that way.
I think it's really interesting of all the work that's been happening in Detroit that Mike Duggan has been able to do in his first term as mayor. He's now really turning to education, knowing that public schools have to start getting in line for him in order to grow the population, in order for families to want to come into the city and be able to have a school system to be able to send their kids to.
Education and crime. And we wrote an editorial today in the Detroit News saying that we are beyond, both in Detroit and statewide, we are beyond the point where tinkering around the edges, changing this, changing that, is going to fix things. We need to blow this school system up in the state, replace it with a flexible, innovative school system that focuses on children and focuses on teaching children, bring in the best educators, the best operators, the best ideas, and make a big, bold statement. It's time for something big and bold here.
All right. Another thing I wanted to get to at the conference is the role that Governor Snyder has played, or really hasn't played this year up at the Mackinac Policy Conference. He spoke on the stage. Go ahead and take a listen to what he had to say.
My greatest concern when I look at where Michigan's at is that we start getting complacent and content again. We start saying, we get that attitude to say things are good enough, or we are prepared. In today's world, you should never be able to say you're fully prepared. The world's changing too fast. It's more important you're having the dialogue about what you've learned, what you've done, and how you're preparing for what's coming next, isn't it? And that's the discussion we need to be having.
Now, obviously, the governor's in his last year in office, so he's not playing as large of a role, and you have the governor's race going on right now, so you have high visibility of other candidates, but he's been very low-key. You got a chance to speak with him, but you didn't speak with him on the radio. I didn't interview him, actually, at the set. How would you characterize where he's at right now?
Well, I mean, he's better than he has been in recent years. He's very optimistic. He's the old Rick Snyder, in my view. I asked him, what's your must-get-done item? in the next 6 months, the final 6 months. He's talking about his Marshall Plan for skilled trades, for workforce training. He wants to get that done. You also got a sense that he's worried about what happens to all these things he put in place if, after he's gone, and a governor is elected who will dismantle. We've seen that happen before in this state, and I think he's a little bit worried, even though he says he doesn't care about legacy. He's a little worried about legacy.
What do you think about his role here? I mean, it's been a very interesting one over the last 8 years, and now he's kind of
It's a real contrast if you think of 2011 and 2012 and 13, when he had big items that he wanted people to focus on and that he wanted movement on. But that is sort of the arc of anyone who's in office. Those last years, you don't have as much on your plate. I mean, he should be concerned about his legacy, and I think Nolan and I talked yesterday about that. I think you can't mention his name without talking about Flint. It's not fair to the people of Flint to do that. They will suffer for decades after he's out of office, and that frames his exit from office. At least it's not the only thing.
I was going to say it frames a very interesting conversation, because lost in that is what he did in Detroit, which ended up being transformational. So it's definitely an interesting contrast.
I said yesterday, it's a tale of two cities, right? You reorganize $7 billion in debt in Detroit and give the city a chance to balance its books and start to try to regrow the economy, but then you ruin another city, poison its population in a spectacular way.
You think his legacy will first and foremost be economy, not Flint?
I would think so. I mean, again, a lot depends on what happens after he leaves. People have short-term memories when it comes to the economy. On Flint, I think he's leaving, certainly having done what he can do to fix the problem that happened under his administration. The pipes are being replaced. You talk to some of the Flint business people up here, they're very upbeat, optimistic.
They are very excited.
They talk about sort of a mini economic boom in Flint. That's largely because the governor focused beyond water in terms of recovery Flint and put in place some good measures, some good policies to help encourage business development in the city. And long term, that's what will sustain Flint.
Okay, well, we talk about, as Governor Snyder finishes up his term, we have a governor's race here on our hand. And tonight there is going to be a bipartisan gubernatorial debate. We are moderating that. 6 people on one stage, 3 moderators,
and
60 minutes.
One whip.
What could go wrong? No, I think not like anything's going to go wrong. But I think it's interesting. So we had to kind of sit down and put together, I think, a pretty interesting format, Nolan. I mean, you don't have to reveal everything.
No, but it's unique. I think we haven't seen that in this gubernatorial campaign or in others, where we take a member of one party, a member of the other, and put them face to face at this stage of the campaign. That usually doesn't happen till we're down to 2 in a general election.
So what are the things that people are looking forward to hearing, I think, tonight?
I was just having a conversation with someone out on the porch about this, and this was someone who pays a lot of attention to state politics, said they don't really know that much about these candidates and what they want to do. I mean, they're familiar faces, some of them, but we haven't heard a lot about what they would do if they were elected governor. And I think maybe this is our first opportunity as a state, because it's going to be broadcast statewide, to really start focusing on that.
And I think that's how we tried to frame a lot of our questions. As governor, would you, and then how would you tackle it?
The debate is formatted and it's structured. We've tried to do the best we can to assure that they'll talk about what they'll do and talk about the issues instead of continuing these really unsavory personal attacks that have been going on throughout this primary campaign.
It's been interesting to see the candidates circulate through here. As I always say, from my seat sitting in the parlor, I can turn around and see who is talking to who. I can only imagine about what. But have you felt, Nolan, that the candidates have been as visible as possible in talking to who they need to talk to?
They've been all over, but it's a sharp contrast. You watch Bill Schuette walk through this lobby. It takes him forever. He stops and shakes every hand. It could be the people serving the food. He'll stop and shake every hand. Pouring coffee. I watched Brian Kelly walk through a minute ago. He walked from the lobby to the dining room, never stopped and shook a single hand, never stopped to talk, never talked to acknowledge. And I think that's an issue with him in terms of his political acumen, his political instincts.
Yeah.
Is it accessibility or, I don't know, maybe. What about Democrats?
So, you know, I've seen all three of them up here. They're not generating the buzz that you would normally see in this kind of year where you've got an open governor's seat and 6 candidates, 3 on each side, talking about trying to replace that person. You would think that the conference would be more sort of a buzz with, I saw this person doing this, or I saw this person say this. I haven't
Well, they all dropped economic plans on Wednesday, Tuesday,
and
or Wednesday.
Tuesday.
Nobody has talked about it. I think because they were also ridiculous, but also because I don't think anybody's worked up any excitement for these candidates.
It's going to be interesting to see tonight with the debate, and we'll be talking a lot about that tomorrow and show some clips from that. All right, thanks, guys. You know, earlier on in the week, I sat down with PBS CEO Paula Kerger, talking a little bit about trust in the media and how they earn it back. Take a listen. But you talk a lot about trust in the media, and once the media has lost the public's trust, it's going to be very hard to get it back. And that's going to take, what I hear, is time and money for media outlets, local television news, local newspapers, who already feel the squeeze financially that they can't keep up, or they feel that they don't have that kind of time.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's going to be a shock to everyone in this room. We've never been overfunded, and so I think that there is a false dichotomy between integrity of the work and what people actually are interested in. And, you know, everyone that's involved in news knows the line, if it bleeds, it leads, and so forth. But I think we're at a unique moment where people truly are hungering for something different. And the fact that, you know, little public television is now the 6th most watched, went from 15th to 6th. The fact that our audiences for NewsHour and series like Frontline are just growing exponentially, I think is reflective of the fact that people really want to understand the important issues. I think people are done with hearing about the Kardashians. I think they're done with hearing about things that are really not relevant. They're done with the circus. They really want to understand what are the facts. And one of the things we try very hard is we don't want to tell people what to think. We just want to give people information so they can make their own decisions. So I think that's one important thing. And I think the second is somehow we have to bring down the tenor of the conversation. The late, truly wonderful Gwen Ifill used to always say, our goal should always bring light, not heat, to a conversation. And we have somehow lost the ability to bring people around the table and have conversation and come to the table recognizing that our opinion on something might change. And that's not a sign of weakness. And I think that's why convenings like this are so powerful and so important. The people in this room and the people that are listening through the live stream are all people with a great stake in Michigan and the future of the state, and by extension, the future of the country. And if everyone is willing to come to the table with a sense of common purpose, of trying to move our communities forward and to make decisions that will really benefit the whole, I think we have great hope for the future. And I think media has to play an important role in that. And so I'm very heartened by efforts to improve local journalism. I think the consequence of the reduction of reporters at the local level is just, it's very clear. People read stories, they see that important issues and facts are left out. It's how could you possibly understand a community if you don't live in the community?
Finally tonight, Mackinac Island is known for a few things like fudge, lilacs, horses, and music. So the guys from Under the Radar hung out with some pretty cool musicians who gig around the island.
Hey everybody, it's me, Tom Dalton, coming to you almost live from the Mackinac Policy Conference. And you know, the Grand Hotel, there's a lot of really famous and wonderful things about the hotel, but what I enjoy the most, probably because I'm a musician, is the music. And I have with me right now Dr. Alex Graham, and I understand you're responsible for a lot of the great sounds that come out of the building.
Well, I'm the music director at the hotel, and I've been doing it for about 18 years, since 2001, yeah. And I'm a saxophonist and multi-woodwind instrumentalist myself. And I'm responsible for all the hiring of all the musicians, the house musicians we have here. I do all the scheduling and kind of put together the sets and everything else. And I, of course, perform on a nightly basis. So.
Now the musicians, they come here for the whole summer, I take it, and they live, where do they live?
Well, we got a couple different housing communities here. Up the hill, there's a big place called Woodville. It's where the majority of people live. But there are a couple buildings downtown that house musicians and house other employees as well. So all over the place is the answer. Yeah.
It's got to be a fun gig to have.
It's awesome. It's great. I'm lucky to be here, and every year just gets better and better. So.
Yeah. Well, speaking of getting better, if you're auditioning, I brought my spoons with me if you need any help.
I think we might have a place for you in the kitchen if you want to send in an application.
Sure. Tom Dalton reporting live from this year's Mackinac Policy Conference. Oh, boy. Not quite what I was expecting.
Well, that's going to do it for my week, but stay right there. Coming up next is the bipartisan gubernatorial debate from Mackinac Island. 6 candidates on one stage. Myself, Nolan Finley, Stephen Henderson. We are the moderators for this debate. You won't want to miss it. For everything up here at Mackinac Island, just go to myweek.org. You will find it there. For all of us at Detroit Public TV, I'm Christy McDonald. We'll see you next time. Take care.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Maryland cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.